Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. You know, I'm often asked by people, is there a game out there that you positively hate and that just cannot stand to play? And it's something that I've often thought about. And, generally speaking, I don't actually dislike most video games. Most games I actually rather enjoy at some level. I might not complete them. It might not be for me, for example. But in a general sense, I do enjoy most games. However, I do have a few games that I am very not fond of. And there are many different reasons for that. And I thought we'd get into some of those. And so I have 4 games that I'm going to talk about today that I just don't like at all. And I wouldn't say that I full out hate them. I mean, when I was playing them when I was younger, I certainly hated them. But going back and thinking about them, there's some of that nostalgia, right? And being transported back into that time. So I don't know if I necessarily hate them per se. But we'll start off with my very first game here, which is Disney's A Bug's Life. This game I got for the N64 for my birthday. And actually this was a game that I actually asked for my birthday from my parents. And there was a really big reason for that. Well, there was actually 2 reasons. The first was that the movie was awesome, right? The movie A Bug's Life that was done by Pixar and Disney was absolutely fantastic. It's a great movie. And I remember just really being enthralled by it. The other was that there were many commercials and advertisements that were put out for this game, and they made it look so wonderful. And it made me want to just go out and buy it right away. And so I begged to get this game. And when I got it and I put that card into my N64, the very first thing that got me upset was the graphics. And I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest. It is the N64. But it seemed to me that the graphics that were displayed here were not the same that were on these commercials. And later on, I found out, many years down the road, that this was a port from the PlayStation title. And so that's why it was lesser quality. And that really bothered me, that this could have been looking just like that commercial, but it wasn't. Now mind you, and this is important to understand, most movie type titled games aren't usually that great, right? However, this wasn't too bad, I have to admit. It was a pretty average type of game, relatively easy. Even back then I remember being really easy to get through. But the thing that stood out for me the most, that's a positive of this game, was the soundtrack. I really liked the music. It was upbeat, whimsical. It transported you into that Bug's Life sort of culture, if you will. So I liked it for that sense. But yeah, what really got me and let me down was the simplicity of the graphics, the simplicity of the gameplay. Even at that time, I was quite saddened by how easy it was and how quick I beat it. Which, back then, like it is now, games are expensive. And they were just as expensive back then. I remember my mom paying full price for this, which at that time was approximately $50 to $60. So that's still a big chunk of money put on a game that you beat, in like 2 days. So that wasn't really fun for me, and it kind of irked me, and I didn't really like it for that reason. And once I beat it, I never played it again. But I do have some fond memories, like I say. Another game with a similar story. It's actually funny looking at this now. Back in the 90s, for those of you that weren't around then, when I was growing up, right? Arcades were a really big thing. And I remember going to hotels or going to the bowling alley for people's birthdays, whether my sister's, my own, or friends, or even just going to the local arcade. There was one that was near where we lived, and I remember having so much fun playing those arcades, especially first-person shooters, things like Mortal Kombat, and especially flight simulators. They were actually amazing. And at this time period, I was going through a phase where I was really into sort of flight simulators and sort of military type simulators. And my friend's house that had a lot of different gaming systems is become quite famous on the channel. He had a PC that was pretty beefed up for the time, for this time period in the mid 2000s. And he had this game, and I forget the name of it now, but it was an awesome helicopter tactical military game that had excellent graphics that I was obsessed with, and his dad loved it too, and we used to play it. And I used to just love playing this game and became obsessed. And then there was this commercial that came out for this game called Top Gun Combat Zones. And it was for the GameCube. Now I had a GameCube, and I thought, oh, this is going to be really fun. And what they displayed, both on the commercial and when I went to the store, I went to a flea market, because my dad liked to go to flea markets. And it just so happened that the guy was playing, I don't know if it was the commercial or some type of demo, but it looked fantastic. The graphics, the way that it was displayed looked absolutely amazing, and I was just hooked. And so Top Gun, right? This is the game for the GameCube I was really hyped for. And just looking at it now, kind of, there's a piece of me that gets pissed off a little bit, because even, I don't know if this is going to show well, but you can kind of see, even here, you can sort of see the graphics aren't that great, just by looking at it here. But on the TVs and these commercials, they look fantastic, and they hooked me. And I went in, and my dad made a deal with me when I seen it. So I just gotta have this game. He said, okay, I'll pay half of it if you can get the other half. Now, this game, they were charging $50 for. And so I, put up 25, and I did have that at the time. And so I got the game. And I remember being so excited, because I remember the feel of these arcade flight simulators and that game that was at my friend's house. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be in for a good treat, driving these huge, flying these massive, fighter jets and doing cool maneuvers and bombing and all these different things, which I thought were going to be amazing. I started the game, and I noticed pretty quickly that the graphics weren't exactly what they were put out to be and purported to be. And that bothered me, because I was expecting these really cool graphics. But I let that go, so long as that the flight parts were really interesting and the missions were fun. The first couple of missions were all right, and that's never a good way to start, right? Is if they're just, they had no emotion. I don't really have much of anything to say about them other than that they were just okay. Then I started having problems with the controls. So again, I was spoiled, I guess, with these arcade machines, because they were very intricate. Each move of the joystick and the buttons that you pressed on the console in the arcade, they were so responsive, and you had this great feel and had this feedback, essentially, with what you were inputting into the game, and it just was really, really fun and enjoyable. In here, I found that at times there was unresponsive controls. Things wouldn't go and respond as quickly as I wanted, or in some cases it was the opposite. A slight move of the joystick on the GameCube controller made you go in a complete downward spiral, and it was very difficult to recover from, and that really, really irked me. The other was that there were some great missions, there were a few, And there were some awesome cutscenes and things. I will admit that there were some good ones. And that's where I think some of the trailers stuff footage came from. And then they upped the res and so on that. But there were many missions that sucked, that were a slog to get through, that I hated, and I guess sort of being let down by the graphical capability, having missions that were often a miss. There was a few that were really fun, but there were a lot that were awful and I hated. And it's almost like the developers, for certain missions, and this could just be me, I don't know. It could be even my controller that I had at the time. But some of the missions I found, the controls were better. Like, it just was weird. Like, if they had programmed the game in piecemeal almost. And some missions I felt were excellently controlled, and I could control my guns and my weapons and the plane perfect. And then others, they were just awful and unresponsive, and I think that bothered me a lot, in part because it wasn't what I was expecting, and the graphics weren't as good as I thought. And I don't know, I think I was hoping for that arcade feel here, and I didn't get that. And to be honest with you, I never finished this game. I think I got halfway through and I just gave up. Well, I think a little more than halfway through now that I think about it. But anyways, I just gave up on it and said that's it. Another game that I had high hopes for. And that's mainly because, again, branding and the commercials for it. And this was the 1-2 switch for the Nintendo Switch. Now, as many of you know, when Nintendo was experimenting with the Wii, they made a complete hit with Wii Sports. And I'll admit it, I and my family, we loved that game. We played it almost every day. For years, it became a party staple. And it still does to this day. And there are still some excellent games. There's I think one called Party Games or Party Group Games or something like that we have for the Wii that is fantastic. And I think it's a great, great game. And then I know for the Wii U they let one out that was sort of similar, so you get used of the gamepad and that. And then they did the same thing with 1-2 Switch, because you can use the Joy-Cons similar to what you would use with the Wii remotes. The problem is that they missed it. Like, I found they missed the mark. Whereas Wii Sports was this novel thing and actually was fun. Like, that's the thing. It was actually fun. There was competition. You felt like, laughing when you would make mistakes, or you played tennis or baseball or bowling. It was actually fun. There was a fun factor. There's no fun factor here. And again, these are all that I'm saying here are my opinions, by the way. So if these are your favorite games, I'm sorry that I'm sort of shitting on some of them, but for me personally, I just didn't like 1-2 Switch. I did not find it fun. I found some of the things in here, the different tasks and games, redundant, boring even. And I played this many times just because I wanted to like it. I wanted to sort of relive that Wii Sports like I used to. And I played this with my sisters, I played it with my wife, and when people came over, before the pandemic, of course. And you couldn't capture the same magic. And again, I found the little mini games in here boring, and some were so redundant. It was just, I didn't enjoy it. I understand why they brought it out, so you can learn how to use the Joy-Cons. And to be honest with you, this was not worth the $40 or something that I paid for it back when the Switch first came out. This should have been a pack-in title for free, much like the Wii Sports was. Because, I'll be honest, this was not worth it. And it let me down a lot, because I had big expectations for this. And the last game is one that I left here, and you can see that I have the physical copies of these, but I had left here and it seems to have gone missing, which means my daughter must have walked out of here with it. So, so the game that I was thinking of was Nickelodeon Party Blast, I believe. And this game, again, when I was a kid, for the PlayStation, no, I think it was, no, it was not the PlayStation, it was the PlayStation, no, GameCube, it was GameCube, pardon me, sorry, GameCube, is Nickelodeon. And as a kid, I loved Nickelodeon, right? There's so many great Nickelodeon cartoons, right? Jimmy Neutron, SpongeBob, and these characters were there. And you were playing these characters, and it was like a party, game where you're doing different tasks and sort of a beat 'em up thing as well, kind of like a Smash Brothers type thing. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I have to buy this. It has all these characters, and it's everything I've ever wanted to play these iconic characters in a game. I was sorely missed on that point. It was awful. I regretted it as soon as I put it in. My sister and I were hyped all the way home. I remember that too. I think we got it on sale, thank goodness, at a Walmart for like $10. But I remember going home, putting it in, and we were super disappointed. It was an awful game. The graphics were horrible. The controls were like the worst controls I've ever seen. They were awful. We had it felt like you were on like ice or something when you were moving your character, and at times unresponsive. It was a terrible experience from the get-go. And I remember my sister and I stopping at that point within like maybe 15-20 minutes of the game, and being really pissed off because you spent money on something that I'm never going to play. And it's funny, I kept many of these games because they are a part of your collection, and I do keep them for that sort of memory of them and some nostalgia here and there. But yeah, but let me know, guys, down in the comments below, what kinds of games or types of games do you just do not like and that you hate for some reason, that just get on your nerves? Everybody has a game or two out there that for some reason they get on their nerves. So let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on that. And with that, guys, I hope you'll have a great day and stay positive. It's going to get better out there, and I will talk to you all soon. Okay, bye-bye.